what sense does it make to launch the Kodiaq and the Tiguan at bang the same time? But I like all that fancy lighting and everything. It looks really cool from the inside. I can't say for sure if it makes me a safer driver, but it makes me a more aware driver.
I just couldn't do it on the go. I was like, forget it, I'll drive without that left mirror.
Who the dresses like that, man? Welcome to the Evo India podcast, and we're back to talking about what we've been driving on our cars this week. I'm Sirish Chandran, editor Evo India.
And I'm Aatish Mishra, assistant editor at Evo India.
And this week, we are talking about the Kia Carens Clavis, the MG Windsor Pro, the Skoda Kodiaq, and the Volkswagen Tiguan. Now, I don't think anybody has done a Kodiaq versus Tiguan, so we'll start this podcast with a Kodiaq versus Tiguan opinion. Aatish has driven the Maserati Grecale. I've driven the Mercedes-Maybach SL 680 Monogram Series. I've drifted the M5 at our recent Summer Tuner Fest. And also, Aatish went to the RedBull Motojam and drove a rear-wheel drive Baleno conversion. Interesting car. I've never driven anything like that. So we'll talk about that. All that and more on This Week in Cars on the Evo India podcast. So, Aatish, should we start with your opinions on the Kodiaq?
Yeah. So, new Skoda Kodiaq. This is a new generation car. Both the Kodiaq and Tiguan are now new generation cars. The engine is fundamentally the same. It's the same engine, but slightly up-tuned. And you got a new, updated MQB platform. So, the fundamentals underneath are still the same, but it feels like a very different car.
Yeah, so on the cover of this month's Evo India magazine, we've called them blood brothers.
Yeah, they are.
Same DNA, the architecture is the same. So both are sort of joined at the hip.
Correct.
But then the approach is kind of different. In fact, the approach is slightly more different than previously with the earlier generation Kodiaq and the Tiguan.
Correct.
Before we talk about the differences, I also want to highlight the fact that now these are cousins in the same group. You could even call them brothers because they work so closely. The product line is so intertwined. What sense does it make to launch the Kodiaq and the Tiguan at bang the same time, at bang the same price? It's a 1 lakh price difference between the two. Both these cars, the earlier generation, were getting a little long in the tooth. They both needed these new cars. But why bring it at the same time? Because fundamentally, they are looking at the same audience.
Correct.
It's the same buyer. Okay, with the Kodiaq, you will also look at a more practical-oriented person because of that third row of seats, which the Tiguan doesn't have. But that really is the main difference between the two. Otherwise, there's not that much. We'll talk about the other differences.
There are small equipment changes.
Some have ADAS, what doesn't have ADAS, all of that. But they're practically going out to the same audience.
Correct. And everybody who's called me to say, should I get the Kodiaq or should I get the Tiguan? There's never, I only want the Kodiaq. They both are in consideration for everybody.
There is no C5 Aircross. There is, the Tucson is there, but now that's really long in the tooth. So now that's not on consideration set in this price bracket. So,
and also the people buying these cars generally want a European car. That's why they're looking
and a newer car.
Yeah.
No, what's the flavor of the month?
Correct, but for some reason, I never see somebody putting the Kodiaq and the Tucson in the same consideration set.
It was. So when the Tucson came in, that time it definitely was. There were a lot of people who bought the Tucson fundamentally for the fact that it also has a diesel engine, which these two don't have. They continue with their petrol engines. So now they are competing with themselves and also trying to draw away buyers from Mercedes, from BMW. So at the same price, you get a GLA, you get an X1. Here, you get a little bit more space, you get more equipment.
Correct.
So, these are both the thinking man/woman's cars.
Correct.
Right?
But like you said, why they've come at the same time, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think they should have staggered it because they're competing for the same market. And from a brand perspective, I get it. Like Skoda wants excitement for their brand. Volkswagen wants excitement from their brand. But from a group perspective, why would you do that at the same time?
Yeah, because you're just eating into each other. So anyway, we don't have an answer to that. We think it's baffling. I can't see the logic to it. Both, one is a CKD, the other is a CBU.
Yes, and that brings us to the pricing.
Yep.
Which is very interesting, So both are a lot more expensive than before. The Kodiaq starts at I think 46 and a half or something for the sport line and goes up to 48 and a half, 48ish. And
the Tiguan is just under 50.
Yeah, the Tiguan's 1 lakh more than the top end Kodiaq. And I honestly was quite surprised when I saw these prices because you assume that a CBU will be a lot more expensive. So what's going on here? Is Skoda really making money on the Kodiaq, or is VW losing money on the Tiguan? Because one of the two has to be happening.
Or VW have got a better pricing from Volkswagen. Now the
That could be.
Tiguans for India are coming from the UK. Probably this is cars that haven't really found buyers in the UK, so those market cars are being shipped to India. Also the fact that right-hand drive, so UK probably is the biggest right-hand drive market for the Tiguan. So first the cars have gone to the UK, and then the UK allocation has come to India. But this is a CBU, the Tiguan.
Yeah.
The Kodiaq is a CKD. Coming back to our earlier question, it's not like both were waiting for their factories to get in order to do assembly of the cars. In fact, VW, CBU, they could have brought it earlier, right? Because it's just a matter of bringing it in. Okay, homologation and all of that. But I don't see why those timelines have to be bang identical. Anyway, forget banging that same drum. The pricing, again, one is offering better value than the other. Also, we have to remember the Tiguan, because it's a CBU, the registration taxes are higher.
Yeah.
So your
But in
on-road
some
price,
states, not in all states.
yes, in most states.
Yeah.
But most states where the Tiguan and Kodiaq would sell, the registration
Like,
taxes
I don't
are
think
higher.
that's the case in Delhi. I think Delhi has
Okay.
the same.
So anyway,
Yeah.
when you actually go to buy, you'll be spending slightly more on the Tiguan. Now let's come down to the cross tax.
Yes.
Should you be spending more for the Tiguan than the Kodiaq?
So I think if you're somebody who wants to drive, maybe. Because the Tiguan does get that DCC, and that does change how the car feels.
Yeah.
You know, the DCC, for if you're not in the know, is dynamic chassis control, which effectively means you have adjustable damping. So you
And not just sport, comfort,
Yeah.
and sport plus. It's got
it's got 15 stage damping. So it's almost like a race car where you can dial it in to whatever level you want, and there's a whole like a spectrum
Yep.
of damping that you can pick from comfort to sport.
You know, the only other car that offers you this kind of adjustability for the chassis is
Is that AMG GT? No, that was traction control.
the Porsche 911 GT3 RS.
Oh, those 4 dials.
Yes, that's the only other car that offers you this level of suspension adjustability. The AMG GT had the dial for the traction control,
Yeah.
not for the suspension.
Yeah.
So for the chassis, for the dampers, you get the 911 GT3 RS and you get the Tiguan.
Will the
And
GTI get it?
the
I don't
GTI does not have it. No.
No.
The GTI also doesn't have this level of chassis adjustability. And when you think of it, that really is the game changer.
Yeah.
It's not like some random stuff that has been slapped onto the Tiguan. It does make a difference in the driving.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, we've driven the Tiguan quite extensively. We also did a sand to sea drive. Now, that video is now playing on the Evo India channel. We put it up yesterday.
Yeah.
We put it up yesterday. We had done it some time ago. We've just put it up. So that video is there. So we've driven it quite extensively. I drove the Kodiaq. You drove the Kodiaq in Mumbai. You drove it around Pune.
Yeah.
I drove it to Panchgani on a holiday from Pune. So I've driven the Kodiaq also quite extensively. The Kodiaq doesn't drive as well as the Tiguan.
Yeah.
The Tiguan, when we drove it for the first time in Rajasthan, in Gujarat, it felt tied down. One big difference, and that's something that you also pointed out, was that it doesn't feel as solid as the earlier Tiguans. The earlier Tiguans felt like a rock.
Yeah.
You know, it had that whole Germanic feel to it.
They
the
felt
new
very-
Tiguan,
yeah.
it's slightly
Both of them. I think both of them have that
Yeah,
characteristic.
the Kodiaq also. We'll talk
Yeah.
about the Kodiaq. But the Tiguan, it feels a little lighter on its feet. Doesn't feel as solid. But the ride comfort is good. The handling is more energetic. It is more involving. It's a little bit more playful also. The front end, it moves with more urgency and more enthusiasm. So the nose, the turn-in, the initial turn-in into corners, it feels more athletic.
I think it has a shorter wheelbase. It does, right?
Than the Kodiaq?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that would
because the
also...
Kodiaq, But I'm talking about compared to the earlier Tiguan.
Correct.
This new Tiguan, it feels more athletic. It feels more energetic. It has a better ride. It is more comfortable. It's got more space inside. It is a new car.
And the interiors have moved 3 levels up.
Yeah.
So
the earlier Tiguan, it was, the interior, as well as the exterior aged. It aged really well because of the solid lines. And it's still a good looking car. The interiors are really old.
They had a lot of buttons, small screen, the stuff that people don't really want today. And this one puts the biggest screen you can find into the dashboard over there.
Plus all that ambient lighting. When you light it all red and you drive in the night, it looks damn jingjang.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people would love it. I like it. I'm probably, most people won't agree with me, especially on social media. They don't agree with me that much. But I like all that fancy lighting and everything. It looks really cool from the inside.
But it's missing cool seats.
So, do I miss cool seats? Not really, because these seats are fabric. Now,
I still missed cool seats.
Okay, so we drove it obviously in the summer. It was hot. But the big difference is now, because these cars are UK market cars that are coming to India, Volkswagen didn't really have much say in terms of the equipment on it. They must have checked that, do these cars have a sunroof? They have a sunroof? Thank God, because no chance of it selling in India without a sunroof. So that is one thing ticked off. It's got a sunroof. Now it doesn't have leather seats.
Yeah.
And at this price bracket, leather seats is like a given. It doesn't have leather. It doesn't have leatherette, which leatherette I don't like at all. I prefer manufacturers put just normal fabric seats instead of leatherette. But no leather, no leatherette. It's got fabric seats. It's the first time anybody has tried it in this category. For a lot of people, that will be a negative.
The Kodiaq Sportline also had fabric seats, the old one.
But
the
you had the option of leather.
Yeah.
Here, there is no option of leather. It's fabric seats and that's it. Plus, these are manually adjustable.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Manually adjustable, I'm not a fan of.
Yeah.
Now you're so used to electric seats.
And it's not the easiest. It's not the easiest to adjust. Also, it's that old. The Volkswagens have that knob for the backrest, which is quite tedious to use.
Yeah. So it's something to get used to.
Yeah.
So that is a little bit of a downer. But I like the fabric seats.
Yeah, it's very high quality.
And also, all the seats are. So you have a base seat. Then on top of that, you have all your leather and everything, which actually eats into your actual space and also eats into the bolstering. Whereas the bolstering feels very nice. It holds you really nicely in place. And I personally really, really like the fabric seats on the Tiguan. But people are going to point out that, hey, come on, at this price, fabric seats. But okay. What are we talking about? We're talking about dynamism. And those seats, actually, because of the way they hold you in place, it just adds to the sense of dynamism of the car. The engine, it's fundamentally the same with a little bit of tweaks, but it feels a little bit more urgent, doesn't it?
It does. 100%. Yeah.
So it is faster. On paper figures are also faster, mated to the DSG gearbox, which we all know, we love. Main thing is the interior feels nice. You get a little bit more space. Now you sit at the back, there is a little bit more space. You get a tint on the rear glasses, but you don't get sunshades.
Yeah.
So maybe that also could be a little bit of a downer, but you get a tint. And if they're selling it in India, they definitely have got it homologated, and definitely that has passed all laws. And in fact, when we were crossing the border from Rajasthan to Gujarat, they have those border checks, especially Gujarat. Are you carrying alcohol in the car? And we crossed this in the night. Okay. Despite that, we were stopped, checking for alcohol. No alcohol in the car, obviously. And then they saw that the rear windows were tinted and they wanted to fine us. I said, fine you? Fine us for what? Then they wanted to tear because that's what apparently cops do. That using some key, they want to tear the film. I said, what are you? You're mad or what? That's the glass. It's just like that. Then he's trying to look at where the film is. I said, there is no film on it. And then that cop let us go. But you might get stopped by cops and you'll have to do a little jagda with them.
So
and obviously they will look that, there's no film over there. So they'll let you go eventually. But thoda jagda hoga, right? But that's on the Tiguan. Now, the Kodiaq. You first drove it. What were your impressions?
So we drove it at night. I was quite sleepy when we drove it because the first drives happened at night. But first impressions were good. You think of what the Kodiaq is. It's a big, comfortable SUV. You've got good performance. You've got space. You've got luxury. And it does all of those things. But like you said, that lightness of this new platform from VW and Skoda, that came through. that it just didn't feel as tied down. It didn't feel as solid. I felt like, especially, and I drove it subsequently as well, the suspension makes a little bit of noise. When you go over a bump, that sound dampening that used to be there through the suspension and through the whole mounting points and everything, that's not there anymore. It seems a little looser, and it's quick, it's punchy, it's powerful. The interiors are nice. I really like how the interiors have done. You said you didn't like the seats as much.
I didn't like, because here, I guess because now you have the leather seats, and so you have a little bit more of that padding, so it loses a bit on the bolstering and the way it holds you in place. I felt it was too flat.
Correct.
Also, the Kodiaq is not trying to be sporty at all. They have a Sportline version, but come on, that is just black, more black on it.
Correct.
It's not sporty. The dampers on the Tiguan make a definite difference
100%.
in the way the Tiguan drives versus
the Sportline Kodiaq doesn't even get drive modes, so you can't even change the engine.
Oh, okay.
mapping.
So there's no sport, comfort, all of that. That also is gone.
In
right?
Sportline. In
Sportline.
LNK you get it.
Yeah, so the Tiguan to drive definitely is, and it's now noticeably superior. In the earlier avatars of the Tiguan versus the Kodiaq, that difference wasn't as apparent. It was very close. But here, the Tiguan is noticeably better to drive. But the Kodiaq offers you significantly more equipment.
Yeah.
The only difference is the Tiguan gets ADAS. The Kodiaq doesn't get ADAS.
But you don't really miss that,
We said it, okay? And then a lot of comments on social media were that, no, we do miss ADAS,
Okay.
So ADAS is becoming like a safety thing that people do want, which is great to see that the focus on safety and people talking about safety is improving, is increasing. So that's a good thing. And a lot of people have said, no, we want ADAS.
Correct. But
we
you have
want that safety net.
You have to use it in the right conditions. Like in the city, it's useless.
Okay, so I've been using the GLS now for the past month. That's been my long-termer. That first 3-4 days, I religiously switched the ADAS off before heading out. After that, I couldn't be bothered. And it's been 3 weeks and the ADAS hasn't kicked in unnecessarily.
Either people are improving their driving
I'm also
discipline
driving,
in Pune.
No, but I think I am driving considering that I've got ADAS. So if I see a cyclist weaving,
you're already
in
on
front
the
of me,
brakes.
I'm already on the brake. I know, because if I'm not, the car's going to brake for me.
Yeah.
So I think I am driving for ADAS.
Interesting.
Which actually makes me, I can't say for sure if it makes me a safer driver, but it makes me a more aware driver.
Yeah.
I'm not waiting for the very last second before slamming the brakes. I am feathering the brakes in advance and telling the system that, hey buddy, I'm in control. I'm aware of what's happening. And I'm being honest about this. 3 weeks, the ADAS hasn't cut
So you're saying ADAS has trained you to be a better driver in India?
Subconsciously. It's just imbibed that in me.
Interesting.
So our driver, okay, now he also ferries all our test cars up and down and everything, right? All those cars have ADAS. He doesn't know how to switch off ADAS because I haven't told him how to switch off ADAS. When he's driving, I want the ADAS to be on. And off late, I've never had the ADAS kicking in. He comes and picks me up from the airport and all of that. It's not kicked in. So even for him, or subconsciously, he's now driving to make sure that thing doesn't slam the brakes and he gets yelled at in the middle of the road. Yeah. So that's maybe we should do a little bit more digging into that aspect. Yeah. So that said, I think now all cars should have ADAS. And of course, that pricing, to keep the pricing in check, that's why they haven't put in ADAS on the Kodiaq. Yeah. And because it is assembled here, they can do that trim and equipment levels for India. But knocking off ADAS, no, I don't think they should have done that. So anyway, there is no ADAS on the car. Yeah. When I drove the Kodiaq to Panchgani, and we've spent a lot of time in the earlier Kodiaq, I really love it.
I think that was the perfect car.
It's got the space, it's got the equipment. This new Kodiaq, it's got a little kind of a square thing with a felt cover on it. And you can use that to wipe fingerprint smudges from the screen. Yeah. Which is so freaking delightful. Yeah. It's such a nice touch. Why hasn't anybody thought about it?
Except that the second car that came to us, somebody had dumped that already and it wasn't there in the car anymore.
So anyway, that's not Skoda's fault. No, that's like journalists being a little not very careful with the cars that they get. Yeah. But that I thought was
Yeah, that's
nice
part of
thing.
the simply clever features,
The umbrella. Now, it's
Yeah.
always had an umbrella. All our earlier test cars never had the umbrella because somebody's dapoed that. This one was new, so it had the umbrella. That's a nice touch.
Yeah.
That little
Door
rubber
edge protector.
that pops out.
Yeah.
Okay, but you know what? We wanted to film that. And where the door protector pops out, that is not the leading edge of the door.
It's higher up.
It's higher up.
Yeah.
So somebody's not being very clever at Skoda because the top part is what hits pillars, not that leading edge. So I don't know. What's the sense in that? So anyway, but there are a lot of nice touches in the car. It also has that automatic parking. But if you're a half decent driver, you will park quicker than the car parks for you. I did that test and it does so much of aage piche that is just so I don't think anybody is going to use it unless you like are a really bad driver. You will be quicker than the system. What I want to talk about though is that the drive up to Panchgani, it wasn't the best drive I've had.
Yeah.
Because it's nice, but it doesn't do anything special. For the family, it's great. There's even usable space in the third row.
Yeah.
So you can take 7 people and go up in comfort. Nobody's going to complain. But the driver is just driving.
Yeah.
There is
I know
no
what you mean, yeah.
great joy to be had out of this anymore.
I remember the last Kodiaq when we were doing that Taycan relay.
Yeah.
I had a quick stint in it through the night in Orissa. I drove for maybe 3 or 4 hours. Everybody was sleeping in the car. We were belting through the night, brilliant roads. And that Kodiaq just left an impression on me. You know, whatever it was straight roads, highway, regular roads in the night. I just came away so happy. And I was driving it back to back with Porsches. And you know, when you're driving it back to back, your obvious comparison is the last thing you drove. And I was still impressed with it, you know, so that just talks about how good that older Kodiaq was. And this one just doesn't feel that special.
And just to clarify, viewers, that this is on the pure enthusiast driver front.
Absolutely.
You know, that 10/10th that we like to analyze a car at.
Actually, no, I disagree. I don't think it's just a 10/10 because like I told you, that lightness and that the suspension, the way it feels, the way it makes a little bit of noise while it's driving, even, and that happens even at low speeds. You know, it happens in the city. It happens when you're around town and through potholes. Even at that speed, the older Kodiaq felt a lot nicer, tighter. And
more robust.
Yeah, absolutely. And more enjoyable. You felt like you were in something tank-like.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't
Germanic.
feel like, it doesn't feel that way anymore.
Yeah, so that's a downside to the Kodiaq.
Yeah.
But you get space. You don't get those wings on the headrest. Why was that, Aatish?
So that was interesting. We asked them why no power nap package it was called. So you got winged headrest and you got pillows or something like that and a blanket. But the winged headrests are gone because apparently in the EU, those headrests are a safety concern if you have a third row. So obviously the passenger in the third row could hit their face on that, and maybe because it could twist backwards, it could knock somebody's eyes. I don't know what the logic is, but it's a safety concern in the EU. So if you got a third row, you're not getting those kind of headrests anymore.
But the Kodiaq retains the blinds at the rear.
You get blinds at the rear, you get 3-zone climate control.
The seats also slide. The middle row, it does slide. So you can have even more space in the middle at the expense of the third row passenger.
Yeah. And you get proper massage seats in the front. So the Tiguan has like a small patch of massage. It's just the lumbar massage area. This gets a proper...
Seat kinematics or something, as Mercedes calls it.
No, it's
Kinetic
not that.
Seats.
No, it's not that. It's not that. Seat kinetics is when they move the seats a little bit so you don't get stiff. It just moves your backrest and your base. This the Tiguan actually has a lumbar massage, but this has a full back massage. So it comes up to your shoulders and neck and all that.
Yeah, you're right, because the Tiguan doesn't have powered seats. So without electric motors in the seats, it can't do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's that. And then some other basic equipment. 360 camera it has and the usual stuff.
Which is, no, you get it in Maruti.
But
also.
it doesn't come in the Spotline. So that's where they've tried to save money. So drive modes, 360 camera, cool seats.
A 360 camera, how do you skimp on that? If your Marutis and Hyundais have it, how can you not have it in a...
That's how they get the pricing, no?
Yeah, but I don't think that... Anyway, that I'm sure they would have done, and they would have tried their best to try and get pricing somewhere close. Yeah. But final question. Would you buy this over a German luxury SUV?
I think I would. Because if you're looking at what you get at that price point, you're getting GLAs, you're getting X1s, you're getting Q3s.
Yeah.
These cars are a lot bigger. You get as much performance, if not more. You're getting, like in the Tiguan, you're getting proper dynamic chassis, which you don't get until you go to GLE level or higher. You're getting the space, you're getting proper kit, equipment. I think for a thinking man, for a sensible person, somebody who's not worried too much about the brand cachet, it makes sense.
Yeah, okay. Only thing, no diesels. Again, they stick with petrol engines. So that was Kodiaq versus Tiguan. If you have any thoughts on both these SUVs, what would you prefer? And any other comments, let us know in the comment section below and we'll take it up on our next podcast. Also answer it on our social media. So Aatish, maybe sticking with 7-seaters, Kia Carens Clavis.
Yes.
What's new?
So, interesting car. It's basically like a facelift to the Carens, but not a facelift because they're keeping the old car on sale.
So this is like the Swift Tour that is in the cabs and the regular Swift.
Kind of like Krista, High Cross, old Honda City, new Honda City.
Desire, though now new Desire is also available for cabs.
Scorpio Classic, Scorpio N, same logic. They've got an older Carens on sale and they've got this newer Carens on sale. But in all those other cars, I think they're new generation cars. Like Krista to High Cross, big jump.
Yep.
You know, Scorpio to Scorpio N, big jump.
Desire Tour to Desire, new Desire, again, big
jump. This is just exterior styling and interior equipment changes from the older car. Now, the older car is only going to be on sale in one base variant. So, what used to be the base plus one, which was the base variant with sound system, that is now going to be the base Carens single variant for if you're very value conscious or if you're buying it for a taxi.
Do you get a diesel automatic?
I don't think so. I'll have to check what drivetrain that gets. Okay. It's a single variant. I'm not sure what engines it gets. Good question. The Carens Clavis takes over after that variant and then it goes up from there up to this top spec, what we drove, petrol automatic. What's interesting is now you still get three engines, NATAS petrol, turbo petrol, diesel. The turbo petrol now gets a manual, which Kia never got before.
It had that IVT.
You had the IMT?
IMT, sorry.
You had the IMT and you had the DCT.
Yes.
But now you finally get a manual. I think it's the first Kia with the 1.5 turbo petrol to get a manual. It's the least enthu of Kia's cars, but it gets the most enthu drivetrain, which is interesting.
This also is an indication of, now Hyundai introduced this intelligent manual transmission thing, which is basically a clutchless manual.
Yeah.
Then they realized that, hey, nobody's buying it. Kia went all in and all the cars were spec'd with it. Nobody was buying it. And beech mein, Kia was they had solid stocks, heavy discounting, all of that. And Hyundai told us that it's not working. Kia said it is working. But apparently it's not working. So that's why that's getting slowly phased out.
Also, like, this car is going to be a little more expensive than before. From what I understand, this is going to now be Seltos or little more than Seltos price. You know, and the Carens was always known for its value for money proposition. So just bringing in a manual can bring down that entry price of that drivetrain a little more, you know. But let's talk about the new equipment that gets the all-important panoramic sunroof, you know. So that is the big upgrade. You get a 360 camera. You get, what else?
A new steering wheel?
New steering wheel. Yeah. You get a new steering
Bigger
wheel.
screens?
You get the twin screens that you get in the
wireless CarPlay?
No.
No wireless CarPlay?
No, not yet. So I asked them, I didn't ask them. I wanted to ask them. I didn't get a chance. Why not put the Sirius screens in there? The Sirius gets those wireless CarPlay. It has that new hardware, but they've not done that. I don't know if it's a cost thing.
Hyundai now has a plug-in kind of thing that you put it into the USB.
You get a lot of aftermarket things.
And then that gives you wireless CarPlay. So could have just integrated that into...
Could have.
Okay.
But that's not there.
ADAS.
And ADAS,
of course.
Those are the big real changes.
So the main thing is that do you like the styling, especially the front-end styling compared to the earlier Carens?
See, I don't think the Carens' styling was ever my heart yearns for its styling. You know, it was always a oddball little whatever MPV like. They've tried to, at least this is what they say in their product presentation, make it more SUV like. You know, make it more desirable. That's the angle they're going at here. They're like, there is a gap in the market for this slightly more desirable 7-seater, which is more affordable than say a Safari or an XUV or whatever. So that's the market they're targeting. And I think it looks nice, you know. It has that new face of Kia, which is on all their EVs and all of that. And I really like the side angle. It's interesting. The side angle looks pretty cool. It's got nice looking wheels. They've done something to the shoulder lines. They've pinched it a little bit. The new paint that it's like a liquidy silver that's on the car. Looks quite nice in that color. The face is a love it or hate it. You're gonna like it, not like it. The rear.
But in the base avatar, the Carens actually is a very sensible car.
Yes.
Very practical.
Correct.
Comfortable.
Yeah.
It's not trying to be a sporty car. The diesel with the automatic transmission, the fuel efficiency is incredible.
Correct.
The torque is good enough for our highways.
And all of that doesn't change because it's the same car to drive. You know, the engine is the same.
Yeah.
They've had to retweak the suspension a little bit because all this extra equipment adds a lot of weight. That panoramic sunroof is 30 kgs. And the
it's
roof.
all on top. Yeah,
Exactly.
So it really screws with the center of gravity.
Exactly. You know, so they've had to tweak the suspension a little bit, but it's very small margins. You know, you don't really feel it. When you're out on the road, still comfortable, still rides well. That secondary ride over potholes and bumps, and you know, it soaks that up very well.
So we used it as a support car when we did a shoot at Natrax.
Yeah.
It was excellent. You fill it in Pune. You only have to top it up when it comes back to Pune.
Correct.
Over there, it's got enough space. You can hang out of it. You can shoot. Yeah, it's a really... We have one on long-term test, the Carens. And as a long-term test car, as a support for
Phenomenal
all our
machine.
shoots, it's actually excellent. And here's Evo India, where we said thrill of driving and highly recommending a Carens, because after all now, nobody really has one car in their house.
Yeah.
You have 2 cars, 3 cars, and the Carens is a perfect second car.
Now, my concern with the new Clavis is that the Carens' biggest USP with all of this was the fact that it was insane value for money. You know, it came in at such a good price. It filled that somewhere between an Ertiga and a Alcazar. It's slotted in there without any compromises. But now they're trying to push it up. You know, it's going to be Seltos or Seltos Plus pricing. We don't know prices yet. It's going to come later in May. And my worry is, will people still see it as the same value proposition? You know, maybe they won't do the same numbers. Maybe they're going for margins now. I don't know what the plan is, but that will be Kia's challenge.
And this is exactly what Maruti did with the Ertiga and the XL6.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same.
It's the same.
Same
so
tactic,
the XL6 was through Nexa and with all that cladding and different colors, and whereas the Ertigas were mainly white and for the whole mass market.
Correct.
And exact same thing, right?
Yeah, because nothing else, the space on the inside doesn't change. The space in the
fundamentals don't change.
Nothing changes. The wheelbase is the same. The interior packaging is the same. It's just screens, textures, colors.
So basically looking at incremental volumes.
Yeah.
And eventually, obviously, the Carens will be retired.
I don't know incremental volumes because whatever... I mean, the Carens is now only one variant. So this is going to have to take over whatever the Carens was selling. It's not going to be on top of that. It's going to...
Interesting to see.
Yeah.
Though Kia is refreshing its entire lineup.
Yeah.
Sirish, I think I've seen quite a few on the road. You can't miss it for the world. But you forget the way it looks and just talk about practicality, and
Phenomenal.
that thing is next level.
Yeah.
We have a very interesting story coming up. We'll talk about that when we drop that video. We're backed up with all the very interesting videos that we have. In fact, talking about that, you did a very interesting story on the Polo versus the Kodiaq.
Correct.
And talking about the fact that is the Polo the spiritual successor to the Kodiaq? And we're not going to talk about it now.
Yeah, let's do another whole
So
podcast
the next
on that.
podcast is going to be on that. On where are enthusiast cars?
Yeah.
Are there enough enthusiast cars?
Yeah.
Have we gone backward? Are we going forward? Or is it just status quo?
Yeah.
And whether the Polo is the spiritual successor to the Kodiaq.
Yeah.
So watch out for next week's podcast.
No,
Make
the
sure-
Kodiaq is the spiritual successor to the Polo.
Kodiaq, the spiritual successor to the Polo.
Yeah.
So watch out for next week's podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the Evo India channel. Hit that bell icon so you stay notified for all those drops. Coming back to cars this week.
Yeah.
You then drove the MG Windsor Pro.
Yeah.
What is that? Windsor with a bigger battery pack.
Pretty much. And ADAS.
And ADAS.
Yes.
See,
Plus.
see ADAS.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
important.
yeah.
People are buying cars for ADAS.
Correct. Yeah. So basically, this is like how phones have a pro version with a little extra masala on it. This has a bigger battery and this has ADAS. You also get V2V, V2L. Though I don't know how many people are actually using that. And you get a powered tailgate, which is fine. You know, those are your... Oh, and ivory white dual tone interiors.
To make the interiors look a little bit more spacious.
Yeah, pretty much.
Visually,
Because
feel of
the Windsor did
spaciousness.
have those black seats and it
Yeah.
was a little...
Yeah.
You know,
Don't forget, this is India's best-selling electric car right now.
yeah, that's how I started my video.
Yeah.
That this is the bestseller. It's knocked the Nexon off its perch, and now they're doubling down. They're fixing whatever was missing in it, and range was a concern. I remember when we did the first drive, we came back and said, range may be an issue if you're planning for long drives. The claimed range is now 430 something. When I started my drive, it said 420, and we were driving in Guwahati up to Shillong and back. So
you got hills also.
We got hills,
which eats into range. A
little difficult to then give you a proper what the range would be, because it's up down, a lot of gradient changes, a lot of acceleration, braking. But I reached back to the hotel after doing, I think, 180 kilometers with some 35% left in the battery, which is enough. If you're doing that in the hills, on flat roads, if you're driving sensibly, I think you can get 350 kilometers easy, 350 plus easy. So range is not so much a concern. My verdict on that car was that if the MG Windsor is going to be your only car, get the Pro, because that range will serve you at some point. But if it's going to be a city car,
it's worth the step up in terms of cost?
The cost step up was 1.5 lakhs for the first 8,000, but I think those sold out very quickly. And then it went up another 60,000, so 2.1 lakhs.
60,000 it went up by?
After the introductory pricing.
Okay, so that's the first time that introductory pricing has changed so quickly.
No, because
8,000 such a margin.
Because 8,000 units were booked like that. So that's, it's good for them. They hit their
targets.
Yeah, exactly. So 2.1 lakhs is the delta now.
Okay.
But even
2.1 lakhs is quite a bit,
For range, I guess.
And for a car that's like 14-15 lakhs.
Yeah. But see, if it's going to be your only car, would you rather have spent 2.1 lakhs more and had that extra 100 and whatever something kilometers of range on a day when you need it, or be stuck and then charging and something like that? Plus, you have battery as a service.
Okay.
So the 2.1 lakhs can get divided over your entire ownership of
Also, the fact is that most people buy cars on AMIs.
Yeah.
So when you actually look at the EMIs,
it's not that
goes
much
up
more.
by maybe $1,000 or something.
Exactly.
Like that. So that really doesn't pinch on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
So great stuff from MG.
Yeah.
The Windsor, India's best-selling electric car. And it's not like it's taken them that long to get up there.
Correct.
It's like within a few months of it being launched, right up there, immediately
and
on top of the market.
What I also find interesting is that MPVs are not like glamorous cars. They're not compact SUVs. This Windsor has very oddball styling, but that hasn't stopped people from taking to it. It's done some really silly stuff. I got out of the hotel and I wanted to adjust my mirror because I got out a little late and I was in a bit of a hurry so that we don't miss shooting time and all of that. I didn't adjust my mirrors fully. I got out of the hotel, said, oh, I need to adjust that mirror. You have to go into the screen, you have to find the mirror, adjust. Then it gives you instructions on how to use the steering control. I just couldn't do it on the go. I was like, forget it, I'll drive without that left mirror. I'll just be careful, but I can't stop now. So it's stupid.
Okay, so viewers, please drive with your mirrors adjusted and adjust your mirror before you head out of your 100%. Hotel lobby.
Yeah, but it's not just mirrors. If you want to put on the headlights, you have to go into the screen. If you want to open the sunroof, you have to go into the screen. If you want to change your drive mode, you have to go into the screen. And it's not one quick access button. You have to menu after sub-menu, then you get to what you want to change, then set it up.
So anyway, that's the MG Windsor. And I drove last week the Maybach SL 680 Monogram Series.
Yeah.
Now, what is that? That's the SL63 AMG, but that has been Maybachified.
What does that even mean?
Maybach is about luxury.
Yeah.
It's about big engines. It's about a lot of power, but delivered in
effortlessly.
It's like punching with a velvet fist. Right? So you have all that punch, but it's delivered in a more measured, authoritative, but a less kind of a knockout manner. So all the power is there, 577 bhp, but it doesn't have that AMG thunder. No, brrr. It's a little bit more muted. You can still hear the engine, but it's more muted.
Yeah.
You have the comfort, sport mode, but you have a Maybach mode, which is a comfort plus mode.
Which will probably start in second gear.
Maybe. I didn't notice that. But it makes it more sedate. We drove it through the hills around Ibiza. Narrowish roads.
Yeah.
Okay, this car is big. So narrowish roads, but it's just so much easier, calmer.
It's like your land yacht.
And and you look at the views. You look at the ocean. You come out down this crest and like the ocean out in front of you. And you're not driving at 1,000,000 miles an hour and you're waiting for the next corner and your braking points and all. driving calmly, you're absorbing everything, you got your top down. It's actually a very different experience to an AMG. I was very cynical.
Yeah.
It was all these logos.
What is with those logos?
So see, that is Maybach following the trend set by Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Prada, where it is all about in-your-face luxury. With Succession, that series that I'm sure a lot of us have watched, quiet luxury was a trend, but I think quiet luxury was a flash-in-the-pan trend. After everybody stopped talking about Succession, even quiet luxury went by the wayside. And now if you know, at international airports, when you're in the business class boarding line, the last time I was there was a couple in front of me. The guy, he was head to toe in Prada, and the lady was head to toe in Louis Vuitton. Her shoes, so she had her foot on her Louis Vuitton stroller. I could see the underside of her shoe. Underside of the shoe also had LV logos on it. Like, who the fuck dresses like that, man? But people are. You know, it's all about having these logos. You are the walking, talking billboard for the brand.
But you think about what Maybach, or at least in the last decade, it was quiet luxury. Because when you had a Maybach, you had a Maybach badge somewhere, you had a V12 badge somewhere, and that was it. Otherwise, it looked like an S-Class.
Yeah.
You know?
Which is what probably people don't want quiet luxury. People want ostentatious luxury. So this car is not cheap by any stretch of imagination.
This is the most expensive.
4.2 crore rupees.
That's the most expensive Merc in India.
Yep. Without option. You can obviously option cars with a little bit more, but base price, this is the most expensive car.
Bloody hell.
3 cars allocated to India. All 3 cars sold out.
Not
in
surprising.
fact, demand is so much more that Mercedes is trying to get 2 more allocations for India. You know, India is amongst Mercedes' Maybach's top 10 markets globally, soon to be amongst the top 5. India is the only Maybach market in the world where Maybachs are assembled in India.
What happens if you get into a fender bender and you need to repaint some part of your car?
Insurance, balle.
You're going to need a whole new part because there's nobody going to repaint your Maybach logos.
Insurance. Obviously, your car will be in the workshop for a while.
Yeah.
But if you are a Maybach customer, you already have 10 cars. And if you are a Maybach customer, the dealer will give you a GLS, loan a car. No problem. So if you're a Maybach customer, you don't really have that many worries in life.
Yeah, fair.
The main difference between the AMG, the SL63 AMG and the SL680 is that the 680 is only a 2-seater. The rear seats have been taken off.
And what's there?
It's just a cover.
Okay.
So that
Can you put your Maybach monogram bags in there?
Yes, on top of the Maybach monogram seat. And they have Maybach monogram bags.
Yeah,
so that's a different company. It's called Maybach Icons of Luxury. They already have a shop-in-shop kind of thing in Hyderabad. A Maybach Icons of Luxury store is opening in Bangalore. Somebody pointed out that our Prime Minister also used to wear Maybach sunglasses. I've seen people with those M on their sunglasses.
Yeah.
So Maybach is also trying to become like one of those visible luxury brands.
Yeah. They've seen what LVMH and all are worth today and don't want to miss out on the party, I guess.
They're making so much money. LVMH is the main sponsor in Formula 1.
Yeah.
You got Louis Vuitton all over the tracks.
Bernard Arnault was at one point the richest man in the world.
Yep. So this is just keeping in step with what customers want. And ultimately, customers king. We as critics and commentators might say we like this, we don't like this, but ultimately customers putting their money.
We're not the ones with 4.5 crores.
Likes it, right? And Mercedes has a responsibility to the shareholders to make sure that they cater to the customers and what the customers are asking. And ultimately, after you buy an S-Class, then what?
G-Class?
This way. Yeah, but a G-Class you can't be chauffeured to work in, right?
True.
You know, so...
But neither can you in the SL63.
No, but in the Maybach V12 S-Class or even the V8 for that matter.
Those are brilliant cars.
You know, so Maybach has actually got a perfect footing. So from a S-Class to jump to a Bentley or a Rolls-Royce is a big step.
But FTA...
now depends on what happens with that FTA. So now Range Rovers are supposed to drop massively from 100% duty to 10% duty. I don't think that's happening. And also...
but imagine if your Rolls Royce is now half the price than it used to be.
No chance that's going to happen. It will come down.
Yeah.
It has to come down. Otherwise, what's the big point, right? But I don't think it's going to come down so much. You know? So, and also UK FTA, next will be US FTA. it's not like you're getting F-140, 150s from the US. And it's also not like Harley Davidson are coming from the US. Harleys are coming from Thailand.
Correct.
Maybe the CVOs, that price will come down. That comes from the US. But everything else comes from Thailand. So those prices aren't going to change. And eventually the EU FTA also has to happen. So I think it's good. It's good all round for everybody. Porsche prices will come down because Porsche all are coming from Germany.
Yeah.
There are no Porsches coming from the UK or from wherever. So that will... And it's only after the EU FTA will the Defender prices come down, because the Defender is made in Slovakia.
Yeah.
It's Slovenia.
Yeah.
Slovenia, Slovakia, one of the S. Right? It's not made in the UK. So Defender prices aren't going to change as of now. So if you're hoping and postponing your Defender purchase,
Not going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's the Maybach. And we should end with the Grecale. No, we got the rear-wheel drive Baleno. So quickly, Grecale. I haven't driven it.
Grecale is basically a Macan competitor. So what I drove had a 4-cylinder engine. I guess.
The Macan also had a 4-cylinder engine.
True.
Which we never complained about.
Yeah. This is kind of expensive. I think it's about 1.5 crores or something like that. But again, it's a Maserati. It's full Italian, everything. Very nice leather on the inside. The finishing of everything, the buttons, the paddles. You've got these massive column-mounted paddles behind the steering wheel. Feels super expensive. In terms of the way it drives, it actually rides pretty reasonably well. So I was chauffeur-driven Bombay to Pune in that car. I came back from an event in Bombay with the driver driving me back. So I was just sitting in the passenger seat enjoying myself. And then we took it out to drive, and that thing can handle. It actually drives really, really well. I mean, you'd think a Maserati would drive well, but you're also like, it's an SUV. How well can it really drive? I was very, very pleasantly surprised. If you want something practical, but that's very different from everything out there, the Grecale is really nice. One big complaint though. It has a speed warning above 80 kilometers an hour, which is constant. So what usually happens above 120?
Oh no.
It happens above 80.
Oh no.
So the whole expressway ride, it was like this. And I called the Maserati guys and I said, what's going on? Can we turn this off? They're like, no, this is how it's programmed. I think it's something to do with, they need to have that 80 warning and they couldn't figure out how to just give one beep. So that comes on and then it doesn't go off after 80. So if you're driving above 79 kilometers an hour in the Grecale, it's like a nightmare.
So basically you need to take it to an independent workshop and get that.
But it's an Italian car, so I don't know if they can do that also.
Okay, so Evo India doesn't condone these things, but you'll have to take it to an independent workshop.
No, it's ridiculous. It's pointless because you're not, you have a nice car, you're not going to be driving it. In the city you're driving it slowly. There are going to be times you're taking it above 80. A lot of times you're going to be taking it above 80. You just can't. It's frustrating.
Though I've been getting a lot of mails from Maserati about coming and trying our cars. In fact, they've reached out to us to do a podcast. So the VST group in the south, now they are pushing also Maserati. So I think with more dealer push, that will also make a difference in terms of Maserati's visibility. Though that said, globally, Maserati is upper. I don't want to say what I want to say, but they got a lot of troubles ahead of them. So a lot of changes need to be done at Maserati. Their CEO was moved out. They're waiting for a new CEO, new business plan, what they're going to do. So anyway, let's see what Maserati does in India. And finally, rear-wheel drive Baleno.
Yeah. So this was at the RedBull Motojam. We went there with dreams that we're going to drift a nice BMW M5. But when we landed up there, they said, we don't trust you, media fellows with the M4. That M4 needs to be used for the main event. So here you go, rear-wheel drive Baleno. We were quite bummed, obviously. I mean, like, what rear-wheel drive Baleno? How good can it be? And
this is the sedan Baleno.
Sedan Baleno.
Gen 1 Baleno.
Yes. And fair enough, it's not an M4. But by the end of it, I was very taken aback by this build. So I was speaking to the guys who built it and the guy who owns the car. And they were saying the point of this build was to make drifting affordable. Right now, if you want to get a drift car, you're getting an old C-Class, you're getting an old 3 Series. That costs a certain amount of money to acquire. Then you need parts. If something breaks, then you need to import a part or source a part, which is always going to be expensive for these fancy cars. The build costs are expensive. Sure, it's traditionally rear-wheel drive. It has more power. So your ceiling of how far you can take your skills is much higher. But it's not as cost-effective as a rear-wheel drive Maruti. Here, everything is pretty much stock. You've got a Baleno engine. You've got a gypsy gearbox. You've got a custom shaft which takes it to the rear axle, and you've got an eco axle at the back. So it's just parts of super cheap cars you can get in India. So something breaks, it's super cheap to fix. Power, it's not that much. Okay, obviously but you get it loaded up on its side, you absolutely boot it, it steps its tail out. Then you've got to catch it, and then I think maintaining the slides and transitioning is a little harder than it would be with a lot of power. I found that a challenge. You've also got a hydraulic handbrake, which is helpful. Abdo Fegali, who's the drift king, he holds the world record for the longest drift. He got in it and he was just like drifting the whole thing. He's like a master. But for somebody like me, I think I could get the tail out, I could catch it once, but then I couldn't say kick it to the other side and transition the drift. I could do single drifts. We also got all of 3 minutes in the car. So we didn't get too much time to actually drive it. But I was really impressed with the build, because it's a nice build, and if you want to get into drifting, that build costs 3 lakhs with the donor car. That's pretty cool, yeah. I mean, it's not that much money if you want to get into drifting. I think after that, the main challenge will be finding a place to drift.
Yeah.
And you can't really drive this car on the road because it's got a welded diff at the rear. It's noisy.
It's impossible.
So you can't really drive it on the road. So then where do you keep the car? How do you move the car around? Where do you drift? Those are going to be your big challenges. But getting the car itself is not that difficult. Sporttech in Delhi, in Gurgaon, built this car. They're the guys who also did that rear-wheel drive Maruti 800 and the mid-engine Swift. So they're actually doing a lot of these affordable-ish builds based on Marutis, and I think it's great for the culture. They are trying to push drifting culture in India. RedBull is trying to push drifting culture in India.
We are pushing drifting culture in India.
We are.
So we did this Summer Tuner Fest in Pune at the Amanora Mall. So this is a place that we found when we did our M5 drifting video. That video is out also on the channel. And immediately following that, in 3 weeks, we put together Summer Tuner Fest. We had all these tuner cars. We had drift demos. I was drifting the M5. And that thing is just so easy to drift. So we talk about the weight of the M5, 2.5 tons, which is a ridiculous amount of weight because of the hybrid assist and everything and the batteries. But because of the hybrid assist, your throttle responses are like an electric car. It's instant throttle responses. So in any car, there is a millisecond, a momentary delay between what you do on the accelerator and the responses from the car. In this, it is instant. So you want to increase the angle of slide, just twitch your right foot, you increase it. Decrease, you twitch your right foot. It's so precise that it becomes and makes drifting that much easier, that much more in control. Of course, this has a limited slip rear differential, so you have all that control. It's got 1,000 Newton meters of torque with all that.
I wonder how much the Baleno had.
So with that kind of torque, it's just so easy to get the tail out. And then because of this instant response, that precision that you get, also the M5 is a bloody fantastic car. There's so much of chassis bracing and stiffening compared to your regular 5 Series that it doesn't feel floppy, doesn't feel its weight, doesn't feel its size. It looks brilliant on the outside. It's brilliant on the inside. It's a fabulous drift machine. I thought with this whole weight increase, we've drifted M5s all the previous generations. We've got yelled at by BMW's team for tires. This time we had Vredestein on board.
We sorted out the tires.
So thank you, Vredestein, for being a partner with this Will It Drift series. And it was just an incredible amount of fun. And everybody that we took in the car, we took the mall owners with us, we took the mall CEO with us in the car, did some demo laps, and they all loved it. It's just such a hilariously fun car. And all that we were worried about with the M5, that it's lost the core essence of being an M5. Once you drive it, it's easy to make comments on social media and behind the keyboard and behind your mobile phone screen. But once you drive it, once you experience it, oh man, it's bonkers power. It's also controlled. It's hilariously good fun to drive. It is like thrill of driving as a super saloon, as this mental, overpowered, mad super saloon, which if you have the skill, you can drift it like a demon. It's got my heart. It's got my heart. So I think that's all that we have time for in this episode of our Weekend Cars on the Evo India podcast. Next week, do we have enthusiast cars? Where are the enthusiast cars? Are there enough enthusiast cars?
Yeah.
Is the tribe growing or decreasing? Where does the Ultras Racer slot into this whole thing? Is the Kodiaq the spiritual successor of the Polo? And what else?
Yeah, that's it.
The i20 N line.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's part of the whole enthusiast.
So we're going to talk all about all of that on next week's podcast. So make sure you tune into the channel, hit that bell icon if you want to stay subscribed and notified for all our video drops. Drop us a comment. Let us know what you want us to talk about. If you have any thoughts, opinions on the cars that we drove, that we spoke about, Kodiaq versus Tiguan, if you have any thoughts, let us know and we'll take it up on next week's podcast. Thank you for watching and listening.